Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Ghost Files Live. I'm your host, Vincent DiSanti. It is Friday, June 24th. I'd like to thank everyone who's been waiting in the lobby, ready to go. I recognize quite a few names. As advertised this week, I have a very special guest who will be joining me. You may remember him as Deputy Rick Cologne from Friday the 13th, Part 6. As Piscatelli in Shocker and many other screen and TV shows that are too endless to name. I would like to introduce to the show right now my good friend, Vincent Guastaferro. Hey, Vin. How you doing, man?
Hey, how you doing?
There he is. Good. I'm
Hi,
doing well. It's
everybody.
good to see you.
And hi, Vinny. Hi, Vinny.
Yeah, I know.
Doing?
It's this week with my two Vinnies.
Yeah, funny.
Yeah.
No, I got my glasses on a weird angle so they don't reflect, but I want to.
They look good. I like the blue.
Okay.
So Vin, I wanted to, the fans I know you from a lot of films that you've been in and obviously the TV shows. But one of the things I wanted to get started with, I think one of the cool things that since I've been getting to work with you is actually getting to know a little bit more about Vincent Guastaferro, the man. So could you take a moment and just maybe run our fans through sort of your history, where you're from and how you got into acting and how it all sort of started for you?
Wow, sure. Where I'm from, I'm originally from New Jersey. I went away to college in Ohio. I went to an undergrad program at the University of Ohio in Toledo.
Mhm.
And they had a pretty good, and at that time, a very progressive undergrad theater program. So I completed that program. And
Mhm.
then with a lot of my colleagues, the other students that I was working with, we were all looking for grad schools to go to. And I ended up choosing, going to the Goodman School of Drama in Chicago, which has since been absorbed by DePaul University,
Hmm.
and so now it's the DePaul Theater School.
Cool.
But when I went, it wasn't DePaul yet, and I worked at the Goodman School of Drama in the graduate program, which meant that for us, we got thrown right away into the casting pool, and it was very sobering to come out of an undergrad program where we were doing a lot of exploring viola spolin and a lot of game techniques, and just basically having a lot of fun. I mean, we did plays, but the plays were based on, I guess, like an undergrad program. They wanted us to learn and have fun while we were doing the plays. So
Hmm.
we learned and had fun while we were doing the plays. And then getting into the Goodman School was a whole different ball game because they put you on the main stage. They had a resident rep company there, and they got you on the main stage. That meant for their big audiences, for their audiences on, Fridays and Saturday nights, and it was a 600 or 700 seat house, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and they had an extensive. Uh, that look better? No, I don't know. They had an
Oh, you don't have to worry.
extensive. They had an extensive uh, outreach. No, it's a children's theater program, and
Mm-hmm.
by that I meant like full. They were they were emulating what they do up in Minnesota,
Mm-hmm.
the Minnesota's Children's Theater, which is probably the best known one in the country. And then, so what we ended up doing was full production value, everything on main stage, 600 seat audience for children on weekends. So
Mm-hmm.
besides our nighttime performances of whatever play we were in, we also on weekends had to do a morning show and a matinee for groups of 600 inner city kids coming probably to see their first play ever. My wife, who is from Chicago, was born and raised there, said the first play she ever saw was at the Goodman Theater as part of this program that I was talking about.
So Vin, when you were young, what was it that drew you to acting? How did you find your way into that? Like it seems like it was a very clear path for you. Like you went to school for it, you were training for it, and you seemed to be gun ho about this very early in your life. What point was that moment in your life where you were like, acting is all, this is what I'm doing?
You know, something that it wasn't that clear for me, and I'm not afraid to. I'm not ashamed to admit that. I mean, I was pretty confused as to what the hell I was going to do in college. So I ended up picking liberal arts like a lot of people did. And I had a penchant for artwork. I was painting a little, I was doing a little bit of sculpture. University of Toledo had a big endowment from Libby Corporation. So they had a glass blowing program. And I wanted to blow glass, through the tube and make little bulbs and stuff. But
All right.
but because of my art department connection, my scholarship to that school was obligated me to participate in helping prepare the scenery for the main stage shows that they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was working in the shop, basically painting scenery, painting false backgrounds, and learning painting techniques for, almost like the Italians used to teach, how to create 3 dimensions on flat surfaces. But anyway,
Okay.
I was also a wise guy, and and all my friends thought I was funny, funny, funny. And I thought, yeah, 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 yeah. So what? And eventually, one of the theater teachers, directors, came to me and he said, "I want you to be in my play." And I said, "I don't want to be in a play. I don't. What the fuck do I know about plays? I don't know." And he said, "No, come on, you're perfect for it. You'd be right." So I said, "Okay, let's try it." I mean, my roommate was already in the play, so I figured that's something we could do together. Uh,
Wow. So you
and
really sort of stumbled into, you were encouraged by this teacher. Did you spend a lot of time working with, who was it, and sort of did you spend more time working with them, and did they sort of push you down this path a little further?
Yes, 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 absolutely. And so that's what I meant by a progressive theater department. They all were, now that I look back at it, pretty young guys. And he liked me a lot and he thought I was funny and he put me in the lead of the show he was doing, which was basically an Argentinian version of Scapino, which is a classic Italian commedia dell'arte form. And Scapino is one of the best known plays of that whole movement. And I got cast as the Scapino character. So I had to be extremely physical, which is something that they liked about me because I think I had, ADD. I don't know. I jumped around a lot and I was not afraid to do outrageously physical things. And at that age, I was a little more capable. So trying to do a handstand and walk on my hands while I was saying lines and stuff like that was something that appealed to the director.
Hmm.
And he used me in a good way. And the play got hit rave reviews because at that time, University of Toledo was sh- showcasing their student productions. Even though we were undergrad students, they were main stage productions. So again, it was like
Hmm.
a 550 seat house, and we were open to the public for 4 performances a week: Thursday, Friday, 2 on Saturday, and a Sunday matinee. And
So what was that like when you moved into those performances, and now you were performing in front of hundreds of people, and the reception of that, how did that influence and kind of
Well, I'll tell
affect
you
you?
how it Yeah, I'll tell you how it influenced me because, like all actors, I'm a little bit of an egomaniac. And the first
That's
time I
why
got a
I
big
asked.
round of applause, and the first time people stood up and clapped and went, "Yeah, oh, that was hysterical!" Ah! I said, "All right, this is for me," because sitting alone in a studio at the art, you know, school
Mhm.
was not as much fun.
Yeah.
And so I stumbled into it because it was fun. But the very next thing I was put in was a Shakespeare play, Midsummer Night's Dream, and
Yeah.
I got the role of Puck, which, if everybody who is familiar with that play knows, it's a very physical character who runs around the forest and creates magic and mischief for the young lovers that are trying to match up. And then
Yes.
from there, it got into more experimental and contemporary theater because we were encouraged by other teachers to pick something that we wanted to do and do it ourselves with that teacher's guidance or oversight. And
Wow.
so we did a bunch of uh, wild and crazy things. We did Moliere one acts. We did uh, uh, what do you call it? Like Game of Thrones, the dining hall where everybody's eating and around a table. We actually served real food, but we did the play in and around the audience. And then we got into contemporary stuff, some uh, 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 Megan Terry
Hmm.
and some other stuff. The Indian wants the Bronx and all of that.
So, Finn, if I could just interrupt you for one moment, I just want to say something to the fans. Fans, I see your questions coming in. I didn't say this before we get started, but I'm starring questions as we go. Even the donation questions, those will be starred. Once we're done with this portion of the interview, I will step into interview questions for everybody. So if you want to put them into the chat, go ahead and put them into the chat. I will be starring your questions, and we will get to audience questions at the end of this Q&A. I'm just going to let Vinny go because obviously, as you can see, Vinny's a great storyteller. He's an amazing actor, and I always love when we get to hang out. And I took some time shadowing Vinny's acting class, and we'll get to that at some point too. But one of my favorite things was sitting down, asking Vinny questions, and listening to his very amazing answers because he's got such an amazing background. And to get back into that and ask that question, so now you're doing all of these, you know, experimental plays. You're getting to stretch yourself now as this actor and discover new things in a place where you're trying to get the hairstyle. I love the
Trying to
hair, by
just
the way.
get everything not looking so fucking. Now I look like Andy Warhol. Uh, but, but anyway, yeah.
But Vin,
No,
Vin,
it's reverse on the screen. Oh, I got it.
yeah, you got to go that way. There you go, Vin.
Yeah,
Looking
there
good.
it
I
is.
did like your haircut. I saw it the other day, last week on Facebook. The Viking haircut. You got the sides shaved.
Yeah, this shows you how insane I am. I watched a lot of fucking Viking shows on television, uh, and I was digging the haircuts. And all of these really macho guys had their sides shaved and then something up on top, like a bun or a war bonnet or a tail,
Hmm.
And I went for my haircut, and I said to her, "Please give me a Viking haircut and put a little design on the side for me." And she cut in one of those like little Z's
Oh
that's
my
now
God.
starting to grow out. But that's how that came
All right.
about.
Well, we're doing
Because
that for Never Hike Alone too, for sure.
yeah,
We're gonna have Viking Rick, so it's gonna be great. You're gonna be war ready.
yeah.
But getting back to that, so now you're experimenting and doing that. Was that sort of where it was like that's where you had your chance to fail out in the open and not feel judged, that you guys could just try things and do things and really stretch your palate as an actor?
Yes, exactly. And that's what happened right there is I was able to, I was an honor student, whatever that's worth. And they gave some of us who had good grades, they weren't worried about us failing or not graduating. So in the theater department, they gave us a lot of license to say, well, what do you want to work on? What have you read lately? What are you interested in? And then uh, I would match up with a couple of other guys that I really liked, that were
Mm.
friends of mine, peers of mine, and we would we would
Found.
we would tell the professor we want to do this, and he would say, the school at that time was on the quarter system. I don't know if anybody who's gone to college knows what that is, but you don't get a semester. You get like a portion of a semester, a 10-week period.
Mm.
And they would say to us, here's your project, you picked it. We'll assign this faculty member as your director, guide, whatever you want to
Shaman.
call him, however you want to use him. Yeah. And you got 10 weeks to do it. And then we're going to do performances for the department and for the public. And that's when it became a lot of fun, because we were really picking stuff. What?
Oh no, I'm just pointing to like I agree.
Oh, okay.
There's a comment under my chin.
Okay. Uh, uh, we were picking stuff that we thought was at that time edgy and contemporary, and so we did those plays, and that's what gave me, I thought, uh, which was my strongest quality coming out of undergrad school, was a sense of play. I was willing to play with anything.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, uh, and only later, in the constraints of a more serious drama school at the Goodman Theater in Chicago, did I have to learn how to rein things in and become more disciplined, and also
Mm.
get all of the proper voice training and movement training and the the stuff that rounds you out as an actor and prepares you to be a professional. And that was a 3 year grad program. So it wasn't your typical 2 years, do this, do that, and you're done. This was 3 years of grinding it, 8 in the morning until 11 at night, some of the times later. And I'm not kidding. Chicago at 8 in the morning is no party. You know, when you're walking to school with your tights on because you got to go to a group warm up at 8 a.m., it is not a party. But I felt very privileged and very lucky to be part of a group of people that were all dedicated and uh, willing to do what we were there to do. I mean, they were very discerning in picking us. It was a small class. I think maybe 20 or 25 students, including directing students and a couple of designers. So this was a very small, concentrated group.
Mm.
And for those 3 years, we did everything together. So somehow I just segued from the fun of undergrad school into the more serious content that we were now working with at the Goodman School of Drama.
So I imagine that should have been that transition from going from a place where like you almost could do no wrong to now you had a little bit more stringent goals that you had to meet. And that's a time in a lot of people's lives where when it starts to get hard, that's when they shy away from it. So what made you push and want to go to that place where you had to put that in that extra effort and go at 8 a.m. in your tights through freezing ass Chicago to get to your rehearsal? Like, what were those things that now made you concentrate? Like, now I'm pushing forward on that.
Well, because I really felt that I was lucky. I felt like every other people were starving and I was given a steak,
Mm.
and I remember just feeling how lucky I am to have this opportunity. And I went to school every morning, was never late. Once again, I was an honor student, so they weren't worried about me passing my graduate, whatever, academics. And I got a cast in a lot of very, very good roles in main stage plays at the Goodman
Hmm.
Theater, and also was given the same opportunity to form smaller groups with other graduate students and do experimental versions of either classic plays or I didn't say classical, but some of them were, and and um, and also to mess around, to do
Yeah.
some. At that time, Sam Shepard was a very hot playwright. He was emerging, and I was so hot to do his material. So I did 2 or 3 productions of his work and actually got to meet him
Mm,
because
that's big.
very few people know this, but Sam Shepard's father was a pretty well known artist, and his artworks were at okay, I need to frame this for you. So at that time, the Goodman School of Drama was housed in the uh, what's the famous museum? The Chicago Museum of the Arts with the big 2 lions outside and everything.
Yeah.
Uh,
Maybe we can get some help. In is anybody from Chicago in the comments that
yeah,
can
they'll
throw the name
know.
out?
Somebody
Well,
will
they'll
know.
know
But
it. So
anyway,
yeah, so it
the
was
Goodman
housed inside
School of
there. So you were
Drama was
inside a museum
housed
already?
in the art school,
Wow.
and we split that campus with them. And we were lucky enough to split the cafeteria with them too.
Was it
And
Field Museum?
no, Field Museum was more for, yeah, no, it wasn't the Field Museum. It was the Museum of Art. I mean, the
Okay, maybe it's
famous
just that.
Chicago Museum of Art. I should call my wife to ask her what the hell it was called. I can't believe I don't remember. Uh,
We'll
but
get there.
but anyway, they allowed us, the acting students, to have full access to the museum, to the to the facilities of the museum, the facilities of the art school, and we shared the cafeteria. And one day, when my roommate and I were doing a 2 character Sam Shepard play as part of our little experimental theater project, he was in the cafeteria having lunch. Sam Shepard was, because he was there to see the unveiling of one of his grandfather's works or something like that. And we just, bolder, more balls than brains at that time. We just walked up to him and said, "Hey, man, I love you. Can we talk with you?" And he was so accommodating
That's
and
cool.
and so great. I mean, he was just so great. And he spent time with us. He asked us what we were doing, what our take on it was. He would
Mhm.
say things like, "Wow, that's interesting. I never even thought of that when I wrote it." And we that was so empowering for 2 young actors to have this major fucking playwright be telling you that he liked your stuff.
Hmm.
So, you know, there was that mix too. And interacting with the art school was just a wonderful experience. I mean, they were very edgy and out there also. So when our graduate projects came, uh, some of us, like my roommate and I, were doing this small 1 act plays or these other kinds of little things I
Hmm.
told you about. Um,
So
uh,
from there, where did you get to that point where you now wanted to take your acting skills from the theater to the screen?
didn't get there yet.
Ooh.
So the screen wasn't even on my mind. And so the only thing that was on my mind is well, I got this degree now. I'm a MFA, uh, and I graduated, and Chicago had a burgeoning theater scene. There was so much going on there. It was very welcoming to anybody who wanted to be a player, to be an actor. You got to remember, this is when uh, the organic theater had already formed. Uh, uh, Steppenwolf was just starting, And that's, everybody knows who Steppenwolf is. That's Gary Sinise and John Malkovich and all of them. Uh, really great actors, a lot of them. And to be a part of their group, that's it. The Art Institute of Chicago. Thank you, Casey. So uh, we entered a market, the Chicago acting market. And the Chicago acting market was very welcoming. It was a great place to be. So within months of getting my degree, I got my equity card. I joined AFTRA because that was the only significant union in town at the time, because there were a lot of commercials being made in Chicago, and everybody wanted to be in a commercial because it paid well. And that's what I did. And then I worked my way through almost every tier of theater that was available to me in the Chicago market. So I did what was called pub theater, where we did short one-act plays in actual pubs while people were drinking and playing pinball machines and stepping over your body. You're on the ground doing a monologue or something, and some fucking drunk guy with a pitcher of beer steps over you and makes a funny comment, and everybody in the bar cracks up. And so it was that level of involvement with the community that then led us to form our own theater company called the Travel Light Theater Company. And that came right out of the fact that we were traveling light. We had a Volkswagen, and if we could fit the scenery in a Volkswagen and get a pub to let us do a play, that's how we got known to the public and by the public. Then, uh, after doing several, Travel Light was very successful, and it had a main stage theater. And again, I was lucky enough to be cast in several of the main stage shows, in the lead or the very good supporting part, the guy right next to the lead. And all right, so that was that.
Yeah.
Then the next thing was, well, what other theaters in town might be interested in a guy like me? So I started auditioning all over the place. And I was really lucky. I got hired to do everything from dinner theater. I did dinner theater. Think about that. Dinner theater is when you're acting on a stage while people are, like, you could hear their glasses clinking, and they're putting their forks down, and or bursting out in laughter, which was, we did a lot of comedies in the the dinner theater. And they were all over. They were in the North Loop on Michigan Avenue. They were on the South Side. They were out in the burbs, and they paid very well. They were very different than the pub theater outings. They were very different than my own theater company could afford to pay us when we were considered successful. And then a magical thing happened to me. I auditioned for a company called the Organic Theater Company. They did not pay well. They were not disciplined. They
Okay.
were a bunch of
Giving them like a great
wild,
setup here, Vin.
wild pot smoking
Okay.
hippies, but it was the most creative group I had ever worked with, under the auspices of Stuart Gordon, who became
Oh,
a movie director, did The Reanimator, he did a bunch of horror movies that were very famous, but he did that after the Organic. And so I was lucky. I got in a play at the Organic that was about baseball, called Bleacher Bums.
and so this was directed by Stuart Gordon?
Yep. And
Oh, that's
working with Stuart
interesting.
Gordon kind of changed my life. Uh, uh, Working with Stuart Gordon was a privilege and a burden, because he was an ass kicker. He really wanted you to to sacrifice your body and your mind for the theater. But I made my lifelong friends during that time. Uh, Four of the guys that I am still friends with today that I see on weekends, or we moved out here at the same time, out here meaning to LA, at the same time, and had and raised our children at the same time together. Uh, we're all, that was all an outgrowth of my experience at the Organic Theater. Got
That's
to go for
amazing.
now, somebody said. I'm sorry to see you go.
No,
So,
yeah, I'm just
anyway,
anybody who's saying bye, I'm letting them say bye. You can let them just go right into the screen, Vin. You can let those things go. So how many different plays did you do with this company over the years, and how long of a time span were you here working with Stuart Gordon, and how did that
yeah,
lead into the next part of what happened in your
right.
career?
So here's what happened. So, excuse me, my throat's getting a little froggy. Uh, so I graduated from the Goodman School of Drama, and I spent 6 more years in Chicago working professionally with various companies. And during that time, I met Stuart Gordon, and I also met David Mamet, who I did not know was going to be another transformative kind of experience for me, because he liked me. He thought I was whatever, funny or whatever, and he put me in his plays. So that was that. And then,
How was that working with David Mamet and Stuart Gordon? I mean, Vin, it's amazing to hear you say this, because it sounds like you came up during a time where you were all like you were in that age group coming up together. So it was all before you sort of started to go and live on to become, who you are remembered for now. But it's
right,
the fact that you guys are all there, like you didn't have those preceding, the name didn't precede anything yet. So you guys were really like genuinely coming together and working together out of the joy of working together, and then going on to do these amazing things, which is that's one of the most amazing things that I think is a part of your story, is the fact that you've, through the history of your work, you have worked with so many great people.
right.
And
I was
you
lucky.
and just all of that. I just love the fact that it just radiates off you. So I think that that's just really cool. So please continue on
Okay,
with.
I'm almost done. Wait.
No, no, I don't want you to be. I'm sitting
Okay.
back and enjoying just as much as the interview, as the
So
viewers.
so then what happened is I met a lady who was not. I didn't meet like a lady, a partner for me. She
Okay.
was an older woman who had been part of the Chicago theater scene for many many years before me, coming out of Second City and other sub communities of theater that were very popular in Chicago. You got to remember,
Mhm.
Second City was George Wendt and
Oh
Mike
yeah.
Haggerty, and I mean, and on and on. Uh, Super talented people who went on. A lot of them went on to Saturday Night Live. Uh, but she said to me, "It's time for you to make a move." And I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "You have to go to Hollywood. You have to go to the West Coast." And I said, "Really? Why?" Because I'm having such a good time. But my roommate had just abandoned my apartment and moved to Hollywood. And he wrote to me, or not wrote, but what did we do back then? He called me, I guess, and said,
Carrier pigeon.
"I'm having a fucking great time. And I think you should come out here. I got a really cheap apartment south of Pico, and we could afford the rent, and you should come out." So I told this to my mentor, Jane Alderman, a fairly well known personality in Chicago theater. Um, and I mean, she was just a wonderful visionary for the young talent that she took under her wing. And she's the one who encouraged me to move to Los Angeles. And I said, "Okay, all right, I'm ready. I got the money in my pocket." I wasn't a broke actor anymore, so I had, now it's all relative. I mean, I was making, at one point I made $16,000 in a year, and I felt like King Farouk. I mean, I was like, was like the end of the world.
Hooray for inflation.
Yeah, you know. Uh, so, uh, so she said, "Here's what you got to do. I'm going to give you a list of 50 names, people that I know in Los Angeles, and you go out there, and one by one, you call or contact or try to see every one of those 50 people." I thought, well, so far everything she said is working. So I came out to Los Angeles and I got hung up on. I got a couple of snubs, outright snubs. I got, out of 50 people, less than 10 responded, but positively. And of those 10, 4 said, "I want to meet you." One was my first agent, Wally Hiller, who I'll never forget. God bless him. He was a wonderful soul. And he met me and he said, "You're it. I'll take you right now. I'll sign you today." And I remember not even being sure. I said, should I check somebody else? And, I went to a couple of other agencies and they were all like, I don't know. They were kind of weird. And then I went to a couple of older guys who were already working that I met on that list. And I said, "Wally Hiller wants to sign me. What do you think?" And they said, "Are you crazy? Sign with Wally Hiller right now." So I actually did what they said. One of the guys was so ballsy. He said to me, "You know what? Fuck the rest of your interviews. You walk right back into that office today and you tell him, I made up my mind. I want you to be my agent." And I did that.
Wow.
I walked right back in during lunchtime and I signed with them and my life changed again. Uh, then all of a sudden I was in this world that I knew nothing about. And this was the world of auditioning for television, auditioning for movies, meeting top name people in the industry, the heads of networks, the major directors like Paul Verhoeven, and you know what I mean? Like incredible. It was incredible to me. And I wasn't even smart enough or well versed enough to know that this was incredible. So I was just doing Vinny, I was doing this. What you're looking at.
I was doing this. I love it. Well, I can see
Yeah.
why. That's amazing.
And then what happened is, one thing led to another, and I got cast as um, a lead in a TV movie to play the role of Al Capone.
Yes, I saw that.
Yeah, I got cast in another lead part in a TV movie that was being directed by Michael Mann, and that led to several subsequent hirings for his other projects. And that's the way it worked. You got in the door, and if you did a good job, you were allowed to stay in the door. And if you did a shitty job, they said, "Yeah, thanks a lot. I'll see you around." And that was that. That was the last time you heard from that casting office or from that particular director or whatever. But I was very, very lucky because, like, I don't know if anybody remembers, there was a guy out here at the time who did shows like the Rockford Files. His name was Stephen Cannell, and he was one of the first producers in Hollywood to have his own studio. And he opened that studio up in Canada, in Vancouver, and he would hire actors like me and send us up there for 6 weeks to work on his television shows like Wise Guy and The Commish. And
I love The Commish.
You remember The Commish?
I remember The Commish. I grew up watching all the. I don't want to date you, but I grew up. I spent a lot of time with my grandparents growing up, and they watched a lot of those shows. So I mean, this is stuff that I watch as when I was very young. Is like sort of my introduction to watching TV. Honestly.
Yeah. So there you go.
There it
And
is.
that guy kind of launched me uh, in a very positive way, because then I was on major network TV uh, every so often. I don't want to say every week, but like I did a
Enough.
six episode run of Wise Guy. I was on for 6 weeks straight.
Hmm.
Then I did 2 weeks on the commish. Then I did something else. And then all of a sudden, when I got back down to Hollywood, I was that much more desirable and hireable
Hmm.
because I had that experience. And that's the way it went for a very long time. And I was very lucky to get on shows like NYPD Blue. I did 4 years on that show.
Hmm.
I don't know what if any of you actors out there are listening. You would you would love to get a gig that lasted 4 years. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And and
I was going
that
to ask you that, Vin. Like, what was there? You got a chance to sort of make your way, jumping from show to show, never having to commit to one show. So you got to sort of maybe do the same thing a couple of times on different shows or go play different characters versus being on an NYPD Blue and then playing the same character for 4 years and having that job security. What was that like, the balance of it, like being able to sort of be like you were in college where you got to change it up a lot and kind of do different things versus like that strict, like this is my role? And were you able during that time to go out and do other things while you were on NYPD Blue, were you able to just focus on that and just do the one thing?
I was able to go out and do other things because I was a smaller supporting character, though I was a series regular, and
Mm-hmm.
I did, in fact, get a SAG award. Their first year on the air, they won Best Ensemble, and
Oh,
I was part of that ensemble, so I got that little statue, with the little guy
yeah.
holding his hand out like this. So anyway, yeah.
Well, that's
Uh,
amazing.
and that was a great experience for a couple of reasons, because now I was married and I had two small children and had just bought a house. And I
Yeah,
think
that's a
they're
good
like
time.
four of the most stressful things you can do in your life is get married, have children, and buy a house. And so the job security was really, really important to
Hmm.
me and very welcome. And then as NYPD Blue kind of went away for me, it faded away after the fourth season. Um, I went back to doing what I was doing before, which was getting really good supporting roles in what was then called TV movies. I don't know if anybody remembers TV movies, but it was like this week on Saturday and Sunday, a two-parter, the story of Frank Sinatra. And I had 10 weeks work on that project uh, uh, as Frank Sinatra's good buddy, you know. So I
Hmm.
mean, and I got to work with Marsha Gay Harden. Uh, uh, Jesus, there were so many good name actors, including Rod Steiger. Rod Steiger was there playing the role of Momo Giancana, a major Chicago criminal who was part of Sinatra's life. And I actually had a day where I had to go up to him and first, like an actor, just introduce myself and talk to him. And I was like, oh my God, this is fucking Carl Steiger. Uh, and, and, and then, and then to do scenes with him, you know, and then that led to, I mean, you said you
I
wanted me to
remember.
take you through it. So those kinds of involvements led to me getting cast in some movies, good movies,
Hmm.
like what the hell was that one I was just thinking of now? Robert Redford and Legal Eagles. Okay, and
Legally, okay.
Legal Eagles, and then I got cast in Nothing in Common with Tom Hanks, and Gary Marshall had directed that. And then so the names of the people that I was working with just kept going up. I mean, there were a higher level of participants in our industry, and I felt very lucky, very privileged, and I made my mark there. And then I don't know, and then I ended up. Oh, okay, all right, whistle. I'm passing up something really big.
Well, I think let me introduce you to that. So I think one of the most interesting things here. Now we've gone through this entire part where you've worked with Stuart Gordon, David Mamet, Paul Verhoeven, worked with some killer people. Jane Alderman, who was the casting director on Backdraft and Ordinary People and Midnight Run. I mean,
Right.
all of these things. But what people probably most remember you for is your two horror roles that really stand out. And the first one is the obvious one, the one that we worked together on, is Friday the 13th. And you always joke about that to say, like, all these things that you've done in this past that you've done, the one that people really remember you for, or that you get the most attention for, is Rick Cologne.
Yeah,
so
I know.
give us the lead up into where that came into play, and just sort of that doing the role, working with Tom McLaughlin, working with Tom Matthews, and sort of how that role has stuck with you over the years, I would say.
Okay, but first, let me give you a little segue into that. So
Get me
I
there.
went back from where I was. Now I had worked with a lot of big name directors on TV movies and a couple of major films, and I did. It was called L.A. Takedown, which was the prequel to Heat for Michael Mann. So, and if you look at it, it's the exact same script, same character names, same lines. But when the movie got made, I wasn't up for it for some reason. But anyway, I went back to the theater. I went back to the theater because LA was now not a bad place to be doing theater if you got your foot in the door at the right theaters. And so I got in at the Odyssey Theater, and Tom McLaughlin was directing a play about baseball. Again, another baseball thing called Bullpen. And he took to me. He liked me. He thought I was funny. And he told me he was writing a movie. And he said, when it gets done, I'm going to put you in it. And I'm going, yeah. Everybody says that. But Tom McLaughlin eventually had his casting directors, who were pretty big names at the time, Fern Champion and Pamela Basker. And they had me in for the role of Cologne. I got it. And again, my life changed again, because now I entered the world of horror movies. And I knew nothing about that, except that I was in good hands with a director who loved me, who trusted me, and who wanted me to do Rick Cologne.
So what had you known about Friday the 13th before you had stepped into that role?
What did I know about it?
Yeah, what was my
understanding was it was a slasher, and it was a good one. The first one, I thought, hey, that was pretty good. But I said, oh shit, I'm going to be in part 6. So I watched part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over and over and over until I was familiar with what the conventions were. That teenagers were gonna die. The guy with the mask was gonna come back no matter how much you fucked him up at the end of the movie. So anyway, that's it. And then the one thing that's weird about movies, as you know, is you complete them, and then you don't hear about it for, I don't know, half a year, maybe almost a year. But when Friday the 13th came out, Friday the 13th Part 6 was one of the most popular ones of the franchise to date. People liked it a lot. It had a lot of elements in it that the other Fridays did not have. It had a major stunt, which was the trailer, the trailer turning over on the highway. It had children in it. It had no boobs All the movies before us, we had no boobs and no curse words, no cuss
That's
words.
right.
Uh, uh, there was, I'm trying to think, there was one or two other things where Tom McLaughlin really rewrote the paradigm
Hmm.
for how to make a really good horror movie without playing into the hands of all of that previously done stuff.
Yeah, he really stepped into a Universal Monsters approach where Jason got that Frankenstein treatment. He worked in that stuff with the lightning coming back, and even brought in the stuff with Alice Cooper, with having the tie-in with outside music, playing over the stuff. So, whereas, in my opinion, Friday the 13th Part 6 is when Jason became a rock star. Tom McLaughlin really took Jason and turned him into a rock star and made a big budget Hollywood movie versus the repeat of the formulaic cheap independent film that was made that put it on the map. It was the
Right.
first time it became sort of a blockbuster.
I agree with you.
So one of the questions that actually came up in the stream, it's a good time to ask now, is when some of those famous lines came up, so you bang, was that something you came up with, or wherever the red dot go, you bang, was that something you came up with? Was that something Tom wrote? Where did that come from?
So your bang was mine, but wherever the red dot goes was Tom's. And I thought, we come on, Tom. You know, he liked me, I liked him. I said, let's make something out of this. And you know, he was trying to teach me how not to be so over the top and everything. So the delivery of that in that movie was kind of, I thought, subdued, because I would have
Hmm.
wanted to go, ya bang, you know, but but
Yeah, that
he
might
was,
have been a little
but
too
you
much,
know,
but
yeah, right. So, but he knew better, and I was in good hands, and I trusted him. And he, you know, like another, there was another line in there. I forget what it was. Something like, "Better go get the the body bags."
hmm.
And I had thrown in something like a brand name of the body bags, the of the plastic bags.
Hmm.
Better go get some, I don't know, baggies or whatever. And he cracked up and he loved it, and he kept it for a goof reel, but he didn't put it in the movie. But
That's
a
funny.
lot of that happened. The symbiosis between he and I was that he always felt good when I was coming to the set, because he said, "Well, Vinny's coming today, and let's see what he brings, and then
Hmm.
how will I have to change it a little to make it fit my movie." And
Hmm.
I loved that about him. I thought he was extremely generous and
That's great.
very forgiving, and
Yeah.
so I, you know, I really liked him, and I admired Tom Matthews. I didn't realize that he was already a rock star in the horror world, and that this kid, as far as I was concerned, was really knew his shit. I mean, he really knew how to be the hero.
Hmm.
He really knew how to be the leading man. I By this time in my career, I knew I wasn't going to be the 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 leading man in anything, but I was always going to be the sidekick, the Pancho Tesoro, the whatever it was. I was always going to be um, a good supporting character, and I was very pleased with that niche for myself professionally. Uh, and so I don't want to move away from Friday yet, because
No.
it did lead to another horror movie.
Well, we did. I mean, we can always go back to it too, but I do want to talk about another movie because I think that's one of your role as Pastori in Shocker is another one that stands out, and you got to work with another horror great in Wes Craven, which is where sort of I want to know about that. Like, what was it like working with Wes, and what was going from Friday the 13th to Wes's world and into sort of Wes's brain? How was that sort of path? How did you get across to that, and then what was that experience like?
Okay, so, well, how I got across to it once again was just being lucky enough to be called in for a role. And I got called in for that role of Pastori based on Rick Cologne. So
Okay,
I'm
so Rick
forever
Cologne.
grateful to Rick and Tom McLaughlin for putting
Mm,
me in that world. But meeting Wes Craven was almost, for me, like meeting a rock star that that I was nervous about meeting because he was so well known and the quality of his work was already established.
Hmm.
And he, uh, once again, he liked me. I made him laugh at the audition. You know,
Do you remember
I
what
had
you did that made him laugh?
what?
Do you remember what was specifically what you did that made him laugh? Like what?
Yeah,
What?
yeah. The thing was, I had to. I don't know how many people saw Shocker, but I had a death scene in Shocker. And in the death scene, I had to crawl along the ground and go and get possessed by Horace Pinker and then grab a gun and try and shoot the fucking leading guy who became a big director, Peter Berg.
Berg, yeah.
Yeah, Jesus. I wish I was still on his roster. Uh, but he in the audition, I had to do that death scene for Wes.
Okay, so
That's
that
what he
was the.
wanted to see. And I said to myself, well, there's only two things to do. You know, you're either going to leave your guts on the floor and get kicked out of the room as a humiliated human, or you're going to leave your guts on the floor and be heralded as the hero of the day. And I'll never forget this, and this is absolutely true, and it's verifiable with Gary Zuckerbrod, who was the casting director. Is he had a big session scheduled, like he had 8 other guys out in the waiting room, and I went in there and kicked ass with that role. I was cast on the spot by Wes. He said, "Okay, you got the role." I don't know what he said to Gary, but they said to me, "Wait around. We have to get your whatever your sizes and get ready for fittings and all of the stuff that happens when you get a role."
Mhm.
But Gary was in that outer room with those other 8 guys, uh, bullshitting. But he was saying, I'm so sorry today. We've had a conflict of schedule, and I'm going to have to let all of you go home, and we will just remember you and call you in at another time." And he let those other 8 actors go home, and I got the role on the spot. So that was a day of me going around going, yeah. Uh, and being very very happy to have been cast in that role.
Well, I mean that's such an amazing. I mean that's got to be like one of the most rewarding experiences anywhere to go in there and absolutely just dunk it.
Dunk it,
I mean
and
that's just a slam dunk.
I dunked it, and I'm short, so I don't dunk too many things, but I dunked it, and I was really once again I just felt lucky
Hmm.
because I had made the right decision as an actor in the right circumstances, a casting session for a major movie for a major director. Those things had to all coalesce
Hmm.
in the right way for me to end up as Pastori, and they did.
So
Uh,
now, and then there's another chapter to that, which is now you got the role, but now you got to execute it on the day.
yeah,
So what was that like going to set with Wes? And because there's a lot, I mean, you do a lot in that movie. I mean, there's even that big crash that your character's in.
yeah,
That's a big day of work. Doing car work like that. And then obviously the scene where you're crawling across the ground, which is I can understand why he chose that because that was the echelon of where the character needed to go. So if you're going to test anybody on that, it's got to be on that. So
right.
how many days were you on set and what was that like
Well,
working with
I
Wes
worked a
and what was
couple of
his?
weeks on that movie. I mean, it was almost maybe 10 days or ten
Oh yeah.
working days, or uh, and I loved every minute of it because it was so professional. And the other thing that was almost startling to me to remember was that Wes Craven himself was almost like uh, I don't know if collegial is the right word, but he looked like a college professor, which he was. He was an English
Hmm.
professor, and he would show up on the set with like these, what do you call it? A
Scarf?
sweater that comes up to here, and
Turtleneck?
yeah, a crew neck sweater with a button down collar. He looked like a
Like Mr.
college
Rogers?
guy, you know, and he had on a little sport coat, and I was expecting somebody to show up that looked like fucking, Tommy Lee from the what's that group? The
Motley Crue.
Motley Crue, right?
Okay.
I was expecting somebody to show up that had blood coming out of his eyes, and he was just this gentleman and calm, cool, and collected. Knew exactly what he wanted. He
Mm,
knew how to phrase it, how to say it to an actor, and I felt so lucky as an actor to be on the receiving end of that kind of direction.
mm.
So, yeah, we broke it down into many days. The stuff that happened in the house when I go up to the door and I knock,
Oh
and
yeah,
then
yeah,
I
yeah.
face Tommy. The stuff that happened in the jail cell at the beginning when we're trying to electrocute Pinker.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah,
the
that's
stuff
right.
that happened in the car. Uh, uh, yeah, there were several different segments of it that needed to be worked on separately,
Mhm.
and I knew not a whole lot about continuity. Now, I don't want to say that because by then I had a lot of experience, but I learned more
Yeah.
because Wes was so meticulous and so prepared,
Mm.
and he had his shots lined up and he knew what he wanted to get, and it was a real privilege to work with him. I have to say, uh, and the people I met on that movie, I remained friends with Peter Berg for a while after that, but then he became a TV star. I don't know how many people remember this, but Peter Berg was on a medical television show, the
Mm.
same one that George Clooney was on,
ER.
ER. He was on. Peter
That's
Berg was
right.
on ER for like 5 years,
Hmm.
and then he started directing, and by
Yep.
then I had fallen out of touch with him. But the point of the matter is this is how an actor's career uh,
Yeah.
works. You got to get good at what you do, then you got to go do it where it matters. You got to do it for somebody that matters. Whoever determines that is way beyond you. All you know
Hmm.
is what you have to do, and then you keep working because you met people, you made friends along the way.
So let's talk a little bit about sort of as your career goes on, this role of Rick Cologne really sticks with you, and you
Right.
still get letters and things like that. So what is it? And then I guess I'll get into actually. Let's start with that. Let's talk about Rick and how sort of in such a broad spectrum of a career where you've done so many different things. This character of Rick in this slasher franchise, which is like well, obviously the lawsuits killing it right now, but this undying, like to be a part of something that sort of like transcends the ether and becomes one of those films or one of those roles that just sort of lasts for all that time. What is that feeling like, and sort of how have you seen that evolve over the years?
Okay. So there's other stuff in between, but I won't even get into that. I'll just say that I didn't know how important Rick Cologne was going to be until I did my first horror con and realized that horror fans are the best fans in the world. They are the fans that, if they are passionate about something, they stick with it. They wear the t shirt, they buy the little skull, they do the thing, the hockey mask, they act out. Look at the amount of websites we see, Vin. There's people out there called Gallows Jane, and she makes a whole website out of just killing herself every week on the internet, but in a horror way. And there's so many people out there that are passionate about horror movies that they would come up to me at the con and have little kids with them and say, "Oh yeah, I just introduced little Johnny to it last week," and I'm thinking, "Oh my God, you negligent parent! What? Why are you showing 8-year-old a horror movie where knives go through bodies and stuff. And I realized it was out of my control. It was a
Mhm,
world that I had just was lucky enough to step into.
mhm,
And I loved it. I loved it very much. I love horror fans.
mhm.
Uh, they're generous, they're kind, they're smart, smart. Uh, you being one of them, Vin. I mean, I met you as a horror fan,
Really true.
and a guy who knew a lot about it. And you even said to me, I grew up watching this shit, man. I mean, you're one of those little kids.
That's
Not
very
that,
true. I mean,
not that we're so far apart in age, but well, maybe we are. But the point is you were one of those little maniacs,
mhm,
and it stuck with you, and it
yeah.
turned you into a passionate, driven, smart director.
Thank you, Van.
And you make good product. I mean, look at this movie, Never Hike Alone. I mean, this fucking movie, 3 million people have looked at it on fucking YouTube. That's like more than the Kardashians or something.
Oh, I don't know about they would have. Oh God, no! I wish I
Yeah,
was doing Kardashian. Vin, if we were doing Kardashian money, we wouldn't need to crowdfund.
yeah,
Speaking of which, it's a good time to segue into that. That there is a crowdfunding link for Never Hike Alone 2, which will be shooting later this summer and early next spring. I think everyone who tuned in last week, we informed everybody that we pushed the schedule around, gave ourselves more time to get ready, and that we'll be filming next fall. So that gives us more time to raise more money and do more for the film. So we just crossed. A couple of weeks ago, we crossed $200,000 with the help of fans. We did cross that threshold. We were able to add 2 more kills to the film. In fact, those 2 kills will be in a scene where Vinny is in that scene, and I will tell you what's going to happen after Vin, so that way we don't spoil anything for the fans. But we've added some scenes for when you'll see. That's going to be fun, but we still have more kills to add. One other thing that I wanted to let other people know is that I've been doing updates. We did another update for the Never Hike Alone 2 Indiegogo this week. And since we moved the production back, it opened up a window for a secret project that I've been working on behind the scenes. It's currently in pre-production right now. And we're going to do some crowdfunding for it through the Never Hike Alone 2 campaign. So it's going to compile with everything we're raising for Never Hike Alone 2.
sure.
We're going to announce that project on July 5th, right after July 4th weekend. Everybody has their holiday weekend. That Tuesday, we're going to release our press release. We'll put it on the updated Never Hike Alone 2's crowdfund, which will announce that this project that we're going to be doing that we're hoping to release this fall. We are still filming Never Hike Alone 2, part of it this fall. Tom and I are going to Portland to film the opening scene at a secret lake out in Washington, which is going to be really cool. And so we're going to film that in August. That trailer will release in January, and then we'll finish. We'll be shooting our stuff then next year in April. But this thing is sort of like our apology to fans to say, we know we can't get it done this year like we said we would, but we got something else for you that we think is going to be really interesting. So people are definitely going to want to tune in on the 5th. I'll probably do a Ghost Files live then. To announce the project. So definitely keep an eye out for that. But let's talk about Never Hike Alone 2, Vin, and Never Hike in the Snow and getting involved. And I'll sort of just get into sort of how we met, which was, of course, we did Never Hike Alone. I got to work with the incredible Tom Matthews. And while Tom and I were coming up for the concept of Never Hike Alone 2, he had asked me if I wanted to have you be in the film, and I was actually coming to him to ask you if he knew you so I could get you in the film, because I wanted Rick Cologne to be upgraded to sheriff because it made the most sense. You two had the rivalry. Rick survived the movie. You were locked in the jail cell, which is a good question for you in a second. I'll bring that up. So what was that like, sort of, for you, having a crazy horror fan sit down with you at a diner in Sherman Oaks and say, I want to put you in this fan film. Would you think about reprising this role?
It was great. Meeting you was great. And I'm ever grateful to Tom Matthews for thinking of me, or for you for thinking of me and going to him. But I mean, this is what I mean about horror fans. Hey, for all of you folks listening out there, did you hear what Vinny just said? He's got a fucking lake picked out already. He knows what he's doing. Horror fans are uh, they're informed, they're passionate, and they're smart. And this guy, this young man right here, is really smart. I mean, I know now because I've worked with him, but it's amazing when somebody like Vincente DiSanti here comes to me as an actor, and I got all of that other experience trying to figure out, uh, how I liked to be dealt with as an actor and what a director can bring to a conversation with me after having, I mean, Gary Marshall directed me and Michael Mann directed me, and you know what I mean? A lot of fucking people that were at that time, pretty important. And
Still are.
along comes this guy, and he
Want to be in my fan film, Vin?
no, but he filled that spot perfectly. He spoke to
Wow.
me with uh, respect. He was informed. He knew what he wanted for his movie. He had a vision of where my character should go, how he can be developed, what can happen for him. Uh, I don't know what else to say. I mean, meeting you was a really great thing, and then it opened up the doors to all of this. But you know what? Wait. We skipped something along the way. So back there,
Yeah.
I'm going back for a second because
Let's
I
go
want
back.
the listening audience to know this. Is that in the meantime, whatever that means for an actor's career, I was. Uh, I was unemployed. I remember I was unemployed, and I got a call from David Mamet saying, I'm going to go to Cambridge, Massachusetts to work on this new play that I got, and I think you're the right guy for the role. You want to step on board? You want to be part of this? Uh, and I was like, well, I don't know. I got two kids at home, and I'm unemployed, and I said to my wife, I got this opportunity to go work with Mamet. And she looked at me like, are you fucking crazy? Pack your suitcase right now, get on a plane, and go there and work with David Mamet on this new play. I did do that, and I'm shortening this story a lot. I did that. 6 months went by, and then I got the next call. We're opening on Broadway. The role is yours if you want it. So, in between all of that movie stuff and all of that television stuff and some horror stuff, I was lucky enough to go to Broadway and have a successful 9 month run.
Wow.
There's not too many dramas on Broadway anymore. Everything's a musical.
So,
And
so Vin,
so,
from what
go
one thing I
ahead.
want to ask right with this is sounding sort of like, let's rewind all the way to Vinny in college, the funny guy painting backgrounds. Was this sort of you getting on Broadway, even though you did the films, or even though you did these other companies and went around? Was Broadway sort of that moment where you felt like personally this was your mountaintop? Is this sort of what I'm getting from
You
that,
know
or what?
something? I think every young actor, at least if you're born back east, anyway,
Okay.
you
Yeah.
don't think of like, oh, I want to grow up and be in the movies. You think of, I want to grow up and be on Broadway.
Mm,
And I had an opportunity to go on Broadway, to be on Broadway, to perform on Broadway, and with the very famous Patti LuPone, who just won her third Tony. Um, and I'll never forget that opening night. You know, the tradition on Broadway is to wait around until the review comes out. The review meaning the New York Times. And if that review is favorable, you know you have a run. If that review is not favorable, the company starts packing up and you're closing in 2 weeks.
mhm.
And we got a favorable review, and I was on Broadway for 9 months.
That's
Nine
amazing.
months. And so, for those actors out there who might be listening, when you're talking about the craft of acting, uh, just remember that 9 months is like doing a baseball season. You are uh, you are, hi, Melanie. 9 months is like doing a baseball season. You get up every day, you watch what you eat, you work out in the same way, you you get to the theater at the same time, you warm up your voice in the same way. It's very, very methodical without saying it's method acting, but it's methodical for you to rope, is that the right word, to gather all of your skills, everything you've learned throughout your whole career, into one big pot now. And that recipe had to be perfect. And that was perhaps the greatest acting experience of my life. So now we'll
Wow.
go back to what we were just talking about.
Well,
So
that's amazing, Vin.
it's amazing.
Yeah. So
And
yeah,
also, let's not forget that after that, I mean, David Mamet directed 3, 4 movies, and I was in them all.
yeah. I mean, it sounds, I don't know. I feel like listening to the story, like that seems like such a special moment for you. You know what I mean? Like,
It
could you
was.
ever, like, when you were just getting in and you sort of maybe like when you started going down that act, did you ever think that Broadway was in your future? Did you think that that was something you could attain?
No,
But
no, I
after
did.
all those years of work, it finally became something that
It was real as real. I mean, it was as real as could be. And
that's amazing.
it was, I mean, we had to run the show at ART, the American Repertory Theater at Harvard, for a couple of months as a test run to see if they thought it would hold up on Broadway. And that show I did with Brooke Adams and Tony Shalhoub. And
Hmm.
then when it went to Broadway, it changed to Patti LuPone and Peter Rieger. But I didn't change. I
Mm,
kept my role.
that's
And
amazing.
that's because Mr. Mamet saw fit to say, this is my guy. I'm keeping this one. You can,
Mm.
whatever you say to producers, I don't know what they say to producers, but you could put other names in it if you want, but I'm keeping Vinny. And it changed my life. Uh, Changed my life. And
That's
so
amazing.
uh, it was wonderful. And I'm saying that to try and encourage young actors, because you might think what you have as in your mind as a goal for you seems almost impossible and unattainable. And you might have naysayers in your life who say, what the fuck, you crazy? What? You, Vinny, the funny guy from the scene painting shop on Broadway? What the fuck are you talking about? No, it happened. And it happened in a really wonderful way. So, going back to what you were talking about, I was then introduced to you. We had the pleasure, it was pleasant for me anyway, uh, of working on Never Hike in the Snow. After I saw Never Hike Alone, I thought, oh shit, I got to be in something this guy directs.
Hmm.
This guy meaning you. And, there it was. You offered it up, Never Hike in the Snow, as Rick Cologne. We made as much as we could out of it, given the constraints, and
And now we get to do it
now
all
it's
over
going to
again.
lead to a bigger and better role in a bigger and better project, which you deserve, because you showed that with your passion, drive, and intelligence, that you could put this on the screen. And this is what made everybody say, I want to see more of what that guy does. And I'm talking about you, you
Well,
know.
thank you, Van. No, it's been a wild ride, and I think that because I've been looking at it's like so I got to say, sitting back and listening, just like with everybody else who's here with us, it's very inspiring to hear your story because I think everybody in this chat is at some age, but is at some journey in their life in which they may be pursuing something or they may be looking for that one thing in their life, and so to hear that you got to have all these great experience. And I feel very similar in that way. Like I look back on my career and I look at the people that I got to work with, like Ash Brannon, who was the director of Toy Story 2 and Surfs Up. And he was the first director I really got to mentor under and watch him work with storyboard artists and editors And then Jimmy Hayward came in, and he was director of Horton Hears a Who, and another Pixar brat that kind of came out and started working all over the system, and working with all these different people. It was like, I can see where everything comes from now, because I think one thing I do want to get into is another place where we got to spend a lot of time, which was when you were teaching acting. And when you transitioned into being in acting and taking your passion, and that was the one thing I always noticed in your classes, the way you took your passion and you shared that with your students. And I know that during the, obviously during the pandemic, not only did we lose a chance to go and make more Never Hike Alone right away, but you also lost that connection, being able to be with your students all the time and be out there. And I know that that was something that really pushed for you. So what is it now about the teaching aspect that you really love, and getting up there and sharing all of this knowledge? I mean, all of these people you've worked with, and that's what, like I said before, like, it glows off you when you're around you. You can tell that you're filled with so much good experience and so much knowledge and so much passion for the craft. What is that like, sharing it with other actors and seeing them evolve and sort of start their own journeys?
Yeah, it was just so terrific. I was very fortunate because, again, I was fortunate because I had a group of people who signed on with me when they were young, like 22, 23,
Mm-hmm.
and stayed with me until they were 35, and left my class to go on and become successful in their own right, in their own way, to make their own projects, to act in better projects, to get a major role on a television show because of a lot of the information I had shared with them, a lot of the coaching that I was
Mm-hmm.
able to give them, and to teach them about, this is the circumstance, this is what you're going to be stepping into. And I knew this is why I had good students, because they looked at me like a guy who had actually been to the OK Corral. You know what I mean? I had been there when the guns went off. So they knew that I was firsthand knowledge. And they wanted to learn from someone who had firsthand experience with top name directors, top notch actors. I mean, I didn't even begin to get into the name dropping of the actors that I have worked with, including Gary Oldman, Sean Penn, blah, 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 and on and on and on.
Actually, while we're in there, we actually have a very specific question that came in, and I might as well jump into it now. We had from Press Play, any cool stories about Homicide 1991 and working with William H. Macy?
Of course. So, first of all, Macy was a Mammoth guy. They knew each other in college. Macy was also a Chicago guy. So he and I were already friends. I mean, we knew each other we hadn't worked together, but we knew each other very well from that market that we both emerged in, which was Chicago. And uh, then being put in movies with him, several, uh, by Mr. Mamet, putting
Mm-hmm.
Bill Macy in almost everything he's ever directed, and Vinnie in almost. You know, Bill and I got to work together a lot and to share a lot of good times working on a movie set, a professional movie set, while you're on location. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we did one movie we shot in Baltimore, that was Homicide 1991, and we did another one, Things Change Up. The whole movie was shot in Lake Tahoe. How bad
Mm.
was that? I
Oh.
mean, hey, you got a day off. I'm at the casino. You know, I mean, it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience. And Bill he's another one of those guys, man. He is a brainiac. He is super duper smart, super duper intelligent, very articulate, very articulate, and very generous, and not afraid, because we knew each other from that many years ago, that if he had a suggestion for something that you were doing, he would say, hey, well, what do you think about this? And you would go, this is fucking Bill Macy. I'm going to listen. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna say, "Wow, get out of here with that stuff." So he was just. It was wonderful, and in those movies, there were a lot of actors that emerged from Chicago at that same time that we all kind of came up together and ended up working for Mr. Mamet often. And that was a great experience. I'm glad somebody out there even remembers what Homicide 1991 was,
You gotta love
because
these
it was
fans.
before the what there was a wasn't there a show called Homicide or something?
Yeah,
I don't know.
there's a show called Homicide, I think.
I don't know.
It was.
Anyway, that movie kicked ass, and if anybody has ever seen it, it has a lot of this is me now, social relevance. I mean, it's
Mhm.
racism, it's racist police department, it's uh, how old-fashioned cops and younger cops intermingle so they can go solve a crime. Uh, the bad guy in that movie, which nobody ever saw except for 1 second. I think he shoots a couple of shots out the window at the end. Was Ving Rhames?
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. How about that? So you're going to yourself, holy shit! I've worked with Ving Rhames. Now I don't know. You could go up to Ving Rhames and say to him, "Do you remember Vinny as the cop who was shooting at you from the parking lot?" But but the point is that happened, and
mm.
that was another little for me, another little notch in the handle. You
And
know,
I think that's sort of like indicative of working in the industry is that it's very random the sort of planets and stars that pass by each other. You know what I mean? Like it may be even for a brief moment, but when you look at that crosshatch, what is it, the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon type thing?
yeah,
Like we got to do the 7 degrees of Vinnie Guastaferro because you have a far more impressive resume, I think, of all these different giants that you've worked with in your career. And honestly, this has been such an honor to sit. I mean, I knew that you were going to be full of great stories tonight, but I'm even surprised about how much I still didn't even know. And I learned a lot more about you tonight, and I've been having a great time. I hope you have.
yeah,
Um,
I am, and I know that they must be getting tired now.
no,
So
and in fact, one of the things I wanted to get to, just because they've been so patient, we've already gone like an hour and a half, just and you filled out this time beautifully. So what I want to do is I want to get to some of these questions,
hi,
some of the things.
Melanie. Look,
Here we go. We're gonna go to let's bust out Warhol Vin, and we're gonna answer these questions. And I'm gonna dive into something. So one of the things that I saw a really good question right here. I'm gonna pull up in a second. But one of the things that I learned about you, getting to know you, is that you're a cinephile. You watch a lot of movies.
oh
You're
yeah,
probably one. You probably watch more movies. You're up there as far as the people I know that do that. And before getting into Friday the 13th, it sounded like you weren't really into the horror genre. But since Friday the 13th, let's bring up this one. Vinny, are you a fan of horror? And if you would say so, what is your favorite horror movie besides Jason Lives?
yeah, that's tough. Besides Jason Lives, never hike in the snow. Uh, Shocker. Uh, uh, no, I'm the horror movies that I liked were not of the slasher genre. I loved The Shining. I loved Rosemary's Baby. I loved a couple of the movies that were so mental that
Mhm.
they would freak you out a little bit. And I remember as a young man, uh, when The Exorcist came out, I couldn't sleep for a month.
Mhm.
Uh, but also when Shocker, not Shocker, what's it called? Fucking, god damn it. Spielberg's shark movie,
Jaws?
Jaws, came out. For a kid who grew up on the East Coast swimming in the Atlantic Ocean, that kiboshed that. I didn't go in an ocean for 10 years. So, I mean, the movies affected me deeply. Uh, the slasher movies for me were entertaining.
Mhm.
How creative they were. they never scared me deeply, like inside. Uh, but anyway, that's my relationship with horror, is that I like the heady stuff and not so much the bloody stuff. But I've come to appreciate and love the bloody stuff too. So there you go.
So I'm gonna pick another question here that sort of launches off of that one, which was, so now you have these films, and obviously we work in an industry right now where you're seeing a lot of films from classic eras, even now in the now the 90s and 2000s are getting plucked for it, but films are getting either remade or they're getting continued. So Eric, who goes under Resolute Blood, says, does Vinny prefer remakes or like fan films of original films? Which I'm going to sort of change this question to be like, with Hollywood regurgitating so much of the stuff that they bring from the past, when you go as a watcher of films, do you want to see them take a brand new pass and say, I'm going to paint this character with a new brush and do something completely original based on sort of the original story, or continue it sort of like how Halloween has, where they have sort of retconned it and they're continuing those original stories and keeping those original characters, which is why he mentioned fan films, because that's what Never Hike Alone does. Never Hike Alone sort of picks up where your film left off and continues your storyline, since the other films neglected to do so.
Okay, very well put. I didn't know much about fan films until I met you, and I have since become a fan of fan films because I love the way that young creative people are scraping together their resources, using their passion, their intelligence, and their resources. Even if Uncle Bob donates, it helps get the project done. And people are driven when it comes to fan films. They are driven because they have something original, or even a ripoff, but an idea in their head that they think is going to put a twist on it that's going to be appealing to everyone, and they execute that. And if you execute it right, they're really good. I'm also a fan of I don't want to say cheap movies, but independent movies like what's the one I mentioned it to you once.
Terrifier?
What?
Was it Terrifier?
No, it was a cowboy movie. I mentioned it to you and you knew the director right away. Ty West.
Oh, Bone Tomahawk?
No, it was the one with
Ethan Hawke, right?
Ethan Hawke
and John Travolta. Yeah.
Death Valley, or the valley where people
in the Valley of Death. Right. In the Valley of something.
What a terrific movie.
Yeah, I like that movie.
I must have watched it like a dozen times. So that's the other thing I do to get familiar with the cinema that I'm appreciating is I'll watch and rewatch and rewatch. And if you ask me about movies like Prometheus, I've seen it 25 times. If you ask me big movies and little movies, I watch them often and a lot and repeat.
Cool. I'm going to bring up a quick question. No, it's okay. While you're doing that, I'm going to bring up a quick question for me, which is from DJ. Thank you for the super chat. Does Jason Rising ignore all Friday the 13th sequels after part 4? So this is another fan film that I think I showed this to you. Vin, did I show you my death scene from this film?
The what?
My death scene in Jason Rising. Have you seen it?
I don't think I have.
All right, I'm gonna have to send this to you so you can see this movie, because it's a film that I worked on with James Sweet and Carl Winery. Actually, they're helping us with Never Hike Alone too. They're the ones who helped us find this lake out in Port. It's actually in Washington, like the secret location. But I went and helped them do this film, Jason Rising, which also brought in some Friday the 13th alumni, Adrian King and Amy Steele from Friday the 13th Part 1 and 2. So they did their cameos in those films. But to answer DJ's question is that, yes, Jason Rising is sort of what we did with Never Hike Alone, but with the final chapter, where it picks up after the final chapter and it tells a new story, ignoring all the events of Part 5 and Part 6 and Part 7 that never, like, it never happened, and it just picks up with a modern story there. So that sort of takes this one. Big Easy was another super chat that came through, so I wanted to show the support. We really appreciate that. That he was a late comer, but he did sort of ask a question, and I'm going to bring this up right now, Vinny, how do you pronounce your last name correctly?
Guastaferro. So you
Guastaferro.
got to think of the word guacamole, G-U-A, right? My name starts with a G-U-A, so it's Gua, and everything else is just as it's spelled.
Just
Stafferro.
Italian. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an
Just let it
Italian
go.
name.
Um,
Guastaferro. So I'm Vinnie Guastaferro. And what it means in Italian is it means breaker of iron.
oh,
Guastare, to spoil, ruin, and ferro, iron.
you should be in Game of Thrones, Vin.
I know, believe it. Oh, God, I would have loved to have been in a movie like that.
And they got more stuff. Oh, well, we'll get to a question like that in a second. Here's one that, would you ever film a Jason film in Canada? There, I believe, were two that were shot in Canada. Friday the 13th, Jason Takes Manhattan, and Freddy versus Jason, and Jason X, all filmed in Canada, in Vancouver, in the surrounding area. Or I believe Jason X was in Toronto. But I would film in Canada because Canada's beautiful and has scenery, and you can find beautiful lakes up there. So I definitely would. Would you go to Canada and make a Friday the 13th movie with me, Vin?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
I love. I like Canada. I've worked in Toronto. I've worked in Vancouver extensively. Toronto twice, and then Vancouver like 6-7 times. And I really had a good time every time I was up there.
So speaking of what you were just talking about, was there ever a character, film, genre, something that you would like to have played or would like to play and haven't yet?
You know, for a long time, my answer to that question was, I want to play a regular Joe. Like, in real life, I'm an uncle 16 times. And I like being Uncle Vinny. Uh, and for those young people, my nieces and nephews who know me, being Uncle Vinny has been a privilege,
Mm-hmm.
But I came to learn that I wasn't going to get cast as a regular Joe. I hardly ever. So my answer has shifted to, yeah, I want to play a totally maniacal, insane fucking guy who has blood coming out of his eyes and eats people or something. I
Okay.
don't know, but I would love something like that. I watch a lot of. Uh, I don't know how many other people are into this, but I watch a lot of uh, Korean movies, Chinese movies,
Mm.
Indonesian movies. I'm fascinated with the martial art of Silat, and I watch movies that feature that as their main martial art form. Uh, there are there are good things being done by people like you, but they happen to be Korean, or they happen to be, you know, from Switzerland, or some shit. But that's the thing that I'm really enjoying, is watching international movies now
Mm.
from all over the globe. Uh, yeah,
Cool. And then Casey got the answer for us. It was In the Valley of Violence.
yeah, fantastic.
That was the correct answer. Back to the board.
Thank you, Casey. Thank
Thank
you
you,
again.
Casey. Let me see. There's another one for me. Is there a possibility of Never Hike Alone 2 being released in 3D, like Friday the 13th, Part 3, 3D? If we raised $400,000.
That's a Vinny DiSanti question, not
Yeah,
mine.
I actually have a very good friend. His name is Kyle House. He's a backer of a lot of the films that I do. We were roommates when I first moved out to LA. He's a professional working post production 3D. He does post 3D. So if your film's not shot in 3D, he's one of the people who goes in and breaks frames out and creates 3D elements. Rotoscopes out the characters, separates them from the background, separates certain elements from the background. So those things are in 3D. So, I mean, guys, if we raise $500,000, I may be able to feed that through a 3D company. Or if Kyle can give me 5 years of work by himself to do it, then maybe one day we can do all the films in 3D.
Yeah,
but
right.
Unless we raise a lot of money, that's probably not going to happen. Here's a good, we were talking about this before we went on the air, Vin, but Eric likes your shirt and your poster. Let's talk about your poster. You got that as a gift from Tom. Tell us about that poster a little bit.
That's the poster for the game, Friday look behind my head. Friday the 13th, the game.
Hmm.
And it's a bittersweet thing because I really love the artwork on the poster, but I was not in the game. And
I
I don't know who made that fucking decision. I'd like to meet that person
I bet they would have
in
brought
the
you in, Vin, but
doghouse.
they got unfortunately the game was one of the things that fell victim to the lawsuit. I know those guys, and they were going to not that they were going to bring everybody in, but they were going to expand on the game and continue to expand over the game throughout the years if they could continue to raise money for it. They were going to do extra packages and stuff like that. But it was one of the, I mean, people wanted Ghost Jason in the game. There were lots of things that really people wanted. They were supposed to get other stuff that never even, and like there was stuff they made that didn't get released. So it's sort of a sad tale of what happened to that game. But if you could tilt your camera up a little bit, this is a special edition poster that was given to Tom Matthews that Tom gifted me with one too. They're actually numbered by piece, but you can see the famous Chad there diving through a window is one of the early posters that they had for the film. So it's pretty cool. I don't think a lot of fans have seen those posters, so they're really, really cool.
Yeah,
I got a theater
and I
question.
love my shirt.
Cool. Someone asked real quick, what's a super chat? A super chat is a way that fans will donate money to make sure that we get into their question. We usually say if someone's going to pay for it, we'll definitely talk about it. And it helps us raise money for the channel. It helps us raise money for Never Hike Alone too. So during these streams, if there is, I believe, a donate button somewhere, or if you want to go to the Never Hike Alone 2 crowdfunding campaign, which there's a link in the description of this interview, and as this replays, it will always be there, at least until the film is completed. If you want to back the film and help us reach $500,000 so we can make Never Hike Alone 2 in 3D, that would be amazing. But if not, there's other stretch goals in there that are on the page that you can read about. And definitely, again, check in on July 5th, where we'll be announcing our secret project, which we had another question, which is that original project? No, it is related to Never Hike Alone. It will be an extension of Never Hike Alone. But it's going to be something very, very special. It won't be very long. It's going to be a very short film. Probably something in the line of what we did with Disappear in the opening of Never Hike in the Snow. It's definitely focused on kills and doing some fun stuff with Ghost Jason, but it's going to be something that I think that fans really haven't seen before. So it's going to be really, really cool. But getting to Vinny's question, Vin, do you prefer small or big theater performances?
No, now as an audience member.
Let's do both. Let's do as an actor and then as an audience member.
Well, okay, so and I've done a lot of both. So, for performance, I actually do prefer a smaller stage. I don't want to say the teeny houses that LA is limited to a 99-seat contract. So it's very hard unless the theater is physically itself a very comfortable place. 99-seat theater is a very difficult thing to pull off because you can't put much production value into the stage of a 99-seat theater. Now, that being said, I've seen some exceptional 99-seat theater here. Uh, uh, my wife was in one, Jesus, not long ago, and I'm going to forget his name, so never mind. But he's, anyway, it was, I've seen exceptional 99-seat theater. My wife also teaches at a Shakespeare camp, and their main moneymaker is their main stage Shakespeare productions. It's beautiful. It's in Topanga Canyon for anybody who's ever been to Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. And it's an outdoor theater with wooden tiered seats, but it seats about 400 or 500 people.
Yeah.
And it's out under the stars. And the stage is a big wooden platform with what they call oh God, my terminology tonight is all off. But anyway, there's one building on stage, and that's used for everything. Everybody enters from there. Everybody exits to there. Everybody jumps off its roof. Everybody runs around it. And they do wonderful, wonderful, wonderful main stage, large productions of Shakespeare there. And I've seen, well, she's been working there for over 15 years, and I've seen most of their plays. And what's great about it being a camp is that my kids went there when they were little. So they have exposure to Shakespeare even at a young age, and that's great.
And they will be working on Never Hike Alone too. We have Luca will probably be helping us out with production stuff, and we've cast Roman as one of the deputies in the film as well.
Yeah, and Roman is currently in. That's why I brought
That's
up.
right. He's doing something with like heavy metal or like rock. He's like
He's in the. It was going to be called Motley Crue, but they got the cease and desist order.
oh, okay, yeah.
So they had to change the name of the play to Mostly Crude.
Okay.
But I mean, I saw it last week, and it was hysterical. And the
Good.
4 young men on stage playing the group, plus the supporting characters, the manager, and the couple of chicks that come in, and all of that, uh, was just really, really fun. And after the play, I said to my son, I'm really proud of you. I'm glad to see you rolling on the floor and doing crazy stuff on a small stage like I did.
I was going to say, did it remind you of anybody?
Yes. And he said, well, I hope you didn't think it was just, you know, just silly. Some of it was. And I said, silly's good. When you go to a small theater and somebody makes you laugh out loud, that was a great experience.
Well,
So I've seen a lot of small theater, but do I appreciate a full blown production of a big play? Sure. I saw Midsummer Night's Dream at the Guthrie Theater in Minneapolis. I saw Hamilton in San Francisco. I saw, back in the day, I saw Phantom of the Opera and all of the, Les Mis and all of the stuff that makes people go crazy. One thing I'd love to see now is the gender reversed version of Company that Patti LuPone is just won her third Tony for.
That's amazing.
That's on Broadway.
Cool. I'm going to bring up our next question. This is another super chat from Dunpeeled Duelist69. Hi there. Congratulations on Never Hike Alone 2. Thank you. I'm super excited to watch it at home in Australia. Over 35 countries have actually pledged backership to Never Hike Alone 2, which is really cool. So it's really nice that we have an international audience. Hello out there from down under. So this question for you, Vinny, my question is, what is the funniest moment you ever did during filming? What was like the thing that you look back and say, that was such a funny moment from a production or a play or anything that you've been a part of? What would you think would be like some of the highlights? Any good stories?
I thought he meant from the filming of Never Hike Alone,
or maybe Never Hike Alone. We did have some. We do have a gag
Never
reel.
Never Hike in the Snow, but
yeah. Never Hike in the Snow. Yeah.
I had a lot of fun on the set with you and Tom. You two guys are. Tom is a riot. You know that.
Oh yeah.
He loves just calling me fuckhead and stuff when the camera's not rolling, just to get me startled. But there were a couple of times during filming of movies where the most fun happens when there's a gaffe, where something goes wrong, and I had more than a fair share of them, so it's hard to pick out one. But I would say working on Shocker and doing that death scene on the day of, like you said, for Wes, and thinking, great, it was like my audition, I nailed it, and then realizing, how many more times are we going to do this today? And it was like 9 more times. I don't know if you remember that, but that was a tracking shot taken from a truck, and they were driving along the edge of a lake while I'm running. Now, I'm not an athlete, so running 1,000 yards was more than I could handle, and doing that 9 times was it. That's when I said, okay, next thing I do, I want to do sitting down, because it was just, it was too much. But I've had good gaffes. I've been on stage with people whose teeth fell out. I've been on stage with people who put on the wrong colored wig and came out and did the scene anyway. I was on stage with Tony Shalhoub, and we went up in lines during the play. We were getting ready to take to New York, And but in Mammoth, there's a lot of curse words. And so he looked at me, and I could tell by his eyes he was lost. And I just looked at him and said, "Hey, yeah, you know what? Fuck you." And he looked back at me. He said, "Fuck me? No, fuck you." And we went like, "Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you," 15 times before one of us went, "Ding! Yes, here's where we are," and chimed right back into the play. So, but we were both lost, but the audience had no idea because they thought they were watching a Mammoth play.
That's hilarious.
So I mean,
So during our little chat right now, I was watching the chat, and we had a backer just put down a $499 super chat to donate to Never Hike Alone 2, which is amazing. Which, if they would have went straight to the Indiegogo, that would have made them qualify for something called the VIP package. So, Tony, thank you very much. I don't know if you have a question. Definitely drop it in there. We'll answer it right away. But email me at wompstompfilms@gmail.com. I want to get your information because I'm going to add you as a VIP backer to Never Hike Alone 2. The VIP is still open. We have vinyl of the first soundtrack that's available right now. There's only 63 of 130 discs left, or records left. If you haven't seen the artwork for that, I would definitely check that out. Artwork by Adam Michaels. We're working with Scarefire Records on that. But Tony, thank you very much. That's going to go a long way. I mean, you just bought somebody's plane ticket to Portland for the next time that we got to go there. So that's something that can go right in right there.
I could see it on the screen. Thank you, Tony.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's awesome.
And not to be outdone, but Motorcycle US did a $2 super chat at the beginning of the thing, so we do thank you for that. But you brought up your first con, Vin. Could you tell us where that was and sort of what that was? Go maybe a little bit more in depth about what that was like when you showed up. What was like, sort of like, and then going to them now. Obviously, we're gonna get you. Yeah, well, where was it?
Okay, so it was in Indiana, and ironically,
Shout
I
out
was
Indy.
booked on a plane with the Lost Boys, the guys who played the Lost Boys in the movie The Lost Boys.
Mm-hmm. So Kiefer there with them?
No, not Kiefer, but I did a show. I did a TV show with Kiefer more recently than that. He had a show on
24.
No.
Oh.
It was a show called.
Oh yeah, he did have another show. Okay. Yeah.
Touch. And I did an excellent guest starring role on that show. Boy, I loved it. And when I got to, I mean, I didn't really get to meet him because he's such an icon, but he gave me the nod, like when he saw me. It was like, and I felt like, hey, that's it.
So did you meet Alex Winter? He was also in Bill and Ted's. He's also he's actually he's a documentary producer now too, and he just obviously did Bill and Ted's too. But he had like short curly blonde hair.
I met whoever the other guys were. They were all on the plane with me. Excuse me, I don't mean to cough into the camera.
How dare you, Vin? How dare you?
1 second. Okay.
I would hit you, but it's all good.
They were all nice guys. I mean, some of them are still really active. Especially, he's got an odd name, but he's a musician, and he was terrific. So I mean, just getting to meet them, because Lost Boys was one of those movies that, like, who didn't love that movie, and I loved it anyway. Mm-hmm. And so I got to travel. I was traveling with them, and then also on the plane, there were a couple of other icons. Although I did not on the plane, but I worked with. I was going to say Dee Wallace, but yes, I worked with her. But who's the?
Hey, we have somebody in common. I worked with her on 13 Fanboy.
Yeah. So who's the chick who had the blue eyes? Meg. Oh, come on, fans. Hi, Sophia. How you doing?
Oh yeah, was the con at was it Horror Hound Weekend? Was that the
Yes,
con
it
that you?
was. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So it
There
was
you
a
go.
Horror Hound weekend,
Sophia gets a point.
and we stayed in a weird little motel right on the side of the road.
What year is this, Vin?
This is over 10 years ago.
Okay.
So
So that was your
with
first
that,
one only 10 years ago, so in like the 2010s?
yeah, I think so.
Oh wow.
I
Okay.
wasn't part of the con circuit for a long time. But then when I went on that first one, I had such a blast and I did really well. So the second one I went to was in Austria. And
That's a jump.
that's a jump, right? And that was just absolutely fantastic. Those people were generous, kind, smart, and even more nuts because I don't know what you know about Germans and horror movies, but they fucking love them. There's heavy metal music, heavy metal T-shirts, heavy metal people walking around speaking German in an English version of German, and giving you compliments and hugs and doing selfies. And it was just great. And then after the show, you go out and eat some strudel, or
Nice.
it was just it was a really wonderful experience. Um, and then back here, like the most recent one was in Tampa. Uh, uh, Meg Foster, that's it. Thank you, Melanie.
And
Meg
RJ had it
Foster.
too. Yeah, I just saw you guys both.
Uh,
There we go. She got it.
yeah, Meg Foster. Okay, RJ. Thank you. Uh, then the most recent one, and the only reason I'm mentioning that is very few of these fans know that my wife was also in Friday the 13th, Part 6. And she was the young lady who gets skewered on the moped as she and her boyfriend are escaping the forest. They go there to make out. Jason shows up. They say, "Holy shit, let's beat feet." And he comes up with that thing that he rips off at the beginning of the movie.
Well, no, he got her with the machete.
No, he didn't.
No, he used the pole on that.
He used the.
All right, I'm gonna have to go
Don't
back and
question
watch.
me, man.
I
This
gotta
is
go back and watch
like
it because I always
literally
thought it
our
was the
fault.
machete.
No.
Oh, I bet the fans will correct
But he
us.
skewered her and the guy that she was with. And so that was her very first con. And there were so many fans that had uh, like partially signed pieces of posters, and they had things that were signed by most of the cast already, but not by her. So people lined up really to meet her and to get her signature on their poster, and that was a really big fun for me.
And I
And
had the
I'm still
pleasure.
friends with Ted Raimi, and I
Oh,
was just amazed at how many people were there for him.
oh yeah, he's got a big following too.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, yeah. And
Um,
next to him was his brother Sam.
oh,
Forget it.
the
They were
multiverse of the
cycled
madness.
out the building and around the convention hall for him. So
That's really
I'm
cool.
still friends with Tony Todd.
Mm.
Uh, Tony Todd and I have a background in theater. We actually did a play together at one of the small theater houses in LA. And then he went on to become this horror icon. And he remembers me very well. And when I saw him at the con, stop everybody! Here's Vinny. He's one of my brothers from the real theater. And he gave me a big hug and shit. And he's just a wonderful guy.
Oh, that's amazing to
Wonderful
hear.
guy.
Here we got a few more questions left. One of them is not really a question, but Melanie had a comment before I thought I would isolate, which is they have Jaws on the water in Austin, Texas. It was a lot of fun watching Jaws while on an inflatable tube on a lake, or an inflatable raft on a lake. Vin, would you watch Jaws on an inflatable raft even on a lake? Would you ever do that?
With Melanie, for sure.
All right.
No, I would do that because it just sounds like such a unique movie viewing experience. What a great idea! Whoever thought of that? Genius.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Um, Not just Horde chimed in before with a really good question. So this is a Friday. This is a very in-depth Friday the 13th Part 6 question. But would love to see an interaction. What would an interaction be between Rick and Megan today? But of course, we'll never see Jennifer Cook again. But what was what was Rick and Megan's relationship? Was there a backstory there when you guys were putting that together with Tommy sort of coming in and being the love interest? Was there jealousy by Rick? What was that about?
Yeah, there was. I mean, Rick had no right to be jealous because she wasn't interested in him. She was interested in handsome young hunks like Tom. Uh, but from Sheriff Garris's point of view, I was like her uncle, like her protector, her, like keep an eye on her while I'm gone. That's why there's so many of those scenes like I'm sitting in the office and she's sitting there pretending to do homework or something, but she's really flirting with Tom Matthews while he's in the jail cell. I don't know how many people remember that, but I kill a bug with my hand and then I go over to beat him up a little bit. And it was, my relationship with her was, first of all, she was extremely professional, really with it. I mean, she knew what she was doing. She was there to do a job. She showed up game. I mean, she was really game to do it. And she was kind and courteous. I mean, what else can I say? As long as, I've worked with a lot of assholes, so I mean,
So what do you think? What do you think? And I'll leave this one up to you because I have my own thoughts. Maybe I'll jump in afterwards. But what do you think if so? Uncle Rick. I mean, obviously Garrus dies. She's got no one left. She hasn't really wanted to come back to Friday the 13th or really step back into the role. I know she moved on from acting in her life.
right.
But if Megan was to come back to Crystal Lake and visit town, what do you think the relationship between her and Rick would be?
Wow, you mean now?
Now, yeah. What do you think it would be now?
It would be old Uncle Rick.
That's true.
I mean, I'm sure she's still beautiful and blonde and a wonderful personality, very feminine, and I'm me. This.
Hey, you got the beautiful white flowing hair, snow-like hair. So you got to use it.
Snow-like hair.
But that's the thing, when us Italians get old, we don't lose our hair; it just turns bright white. And I don't know. I think it's regal. I think it just
I'm
shows
pushing it in the
class.
wrong direction though because I
Yeah,
don't
we
get
gotta.
this reverse thing here. But yeah,
Just,
all white. I'm completely white, and
I'll be there one day, Ben.
I don't mind.
But
During the
that's a
pandemic,
great question.
I let it grow for 14 months without cutting it, and I had
Wow, man.
a little like what do you call a ponytail on the back? Or
Oh, you look like George Carlin.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Boy, he still cracks me up. Uh,
Uh,
but the questions were good, and I wanted to say something that is not related to anything we're talking about, except it is. So I'm a person who gives out my email too generously, and I don't mean to you guys. I just mean to causes. And this political season, I'm getting hit with millions of hundreds, let's say hundreds of solicitations of will you donate to this? Will you, like today was a sad day for women's rights. Uh,
hmm.
uh, but they often say, will you, Melanie? I could, if I could reach into the screen to give you a kiss, I would. Uh, she just called me a silver fox. I mean, I haven't been a fox since like a million years ago. But if I get a million solicitations, all I'm trying to say is some of the times they say you could help us with as little as $3, and I can't say no, so I always say yes. And I realize that these politicians are raising lots and lots of money off of people like me giving $3, $5. And I think that this movie that we're talking about, Never Hike Alone in the Snow Again with Vinnie, can use as many $2 and $3 donations as you people can muster.
Well,
So
we got donations that
don't think that you're giving too little ever. Never be embarrassed. A dollar is a help
a
for a
little goes
film.
a long way, and a lot of people working together. I mean, that's the whole thing that I love about this is that we have over 2,300 fans that have already backed Never Hike Alone too, and not everyone has given. If everyone gave $500 or 2,000, I mean, obviously that'd be amazing, but we've raised $200,000 on the backs of donations that are like $20, $40, $5, $10. It's an accumulation of everybody. So I think one of the things that I think a lot of people in this chat have probably already donated. I think what we now have to go and do, and this is one of the reasons why I like doing Ghost Files, is to remind people that you got to remind the people in your life. You may have donated, but you could generate more for the production if you go out and find a few more friends that you're saying you got to get in on this. You've got to be a part of this.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really thing that I wanted to get out there. We have one more question that's in my chamber, and then we've been going for 2 hours, so we'll probably say our goodbyes after this one. But right. John Zuzolo, who I believe is a producer on Never Hike Alone 2, off the top of my head, I believe he is a producer. He asked are there any plans to premiere Never Hike Alone 2 at a theater or an event? Well, John, I will tell you, we are going to premiere, the goal is to premiere Never Hike Alone 2 at the Telluride Horror Show in Telluride, Colorado on October 13th, 2023, which is Friday the 13th, the same Friday the 13th we debuted Never Hike Alone. So Friday the 13th only comes in October every 6 years. So this is the 6-year cycle of Friday the 13th where everything's coming around back to the circle. If you can't make it to Telluride is an expensive trip. It can be, unless you can drive there. The film festival is amazing to check out. You'll see amazing films. Obviously, Telluride is a beautiful place to stay. It's actually not that expensive to stay there. I would highly suggest that people come there. You get to see it in the Sheridan Opera House, which is a wonderful theater. But if we get more than enough people to fill the Sheridan Opera House, we may be able to take it down the street to where they have an even bigger IMAX screen, and we could premiere it on that. But we would have to have that much support to do that. But when we do that premiere, we will then be taking Never Hike Alone 2 on the road to different conventions and film festivals around the world. And as many as I can, I'm going to be taking Vin with me. I'm going to be taking Tom with me. I'm going to be taking Andrew Lady with us. Hopefully Anna Campbell can come out, Brian Forrest, and the wonderful cast of characters. As many cast and crew as we will take around the country to different conventions and festivals as much as possible. Private events, we will try to throw as many as there. For those of you who are aware, I have relocated back to Massachusetts. So I'll be trying to do a lot of events up here in the Northeast, so in Massachusetts. In fact, I'm going to be at a Wicked Killa Horror Festival in October. I think it's during my birthday week. Actually, it's 5th through 7th in, I believe, Nashua, New Hampshire. I'll be doing an appearance there. And then, obviously, Vin and I are going to be working together with Tom to do more Never Hike Alone related events. So definitely keep an eye out for that. I'm going to jump back into our chat room one last time to see if there are any. Been telling me about Telluride for a couple of years. Jared Crank from Death Curse Society, how you doing? Yes, Telluride. I cannot stress this enough. It's a wonderful festival. A lot of great films to see there. What's up to Fasci Cinema or Facci? Another guy, another one of the tribe. Then
Facci.
Here we go. Yes, and again, not just horror. Reminding everybody, in case don't forget, donate it up. So Vin, we have been going for 2 hours and about 10 minutes. You have been a complete trooper. Thank you for joining me this week and telling us. I mean, these stories are wonderful. I hope, as somebody said earlier, that we should put it on the Blu-ray for Never Hike Alone 2. And honestly, it does record for us, so I can download it. I really think this is very inspiring for anyone who's a young actor, anyone who's getting involved in anything. The lessons that we've learned from the story of your life can be applied to anyone in any genre, for the fact that things don't. We always hear about the people that it just comes to them. You know what I mean? Like, they're the rising star. They jump in the thing and they've done 2 things, and all of a sudden they're a big star and doing these things. Like, most of the people who work in this industry have this wonderful track record of different events and things like that. And your story is sort of a culmination of all that. It's such an amazing experience to sit here and listen to you talk about it. And you inspire me. I love working with you. It's one of the reasons why I love working with you, because you're filled with so much information. It was one of the reasons why I loved going to your class, because as I wanted to get better with working with actors, I was able to watch you work with your students and hopefully learn a thing or two from you, which again, when I give advice to people a lot when they come and I work with them, whether I consult or I do all those things. And I always tell them, like, this isn't me telling you what to do. What I'm telling you is reiterating what I heard from someone who is much smarter than me, who has taught me something. And I want to teach you what they taught me. I want to pass on this word. So when I'm around you, I feel like I feel that inspiration. So if anything you ever said to me, I just want to say you've had a big influence on helping me become a better director, a better storyteller, and you've infused my passion not only for Friday the 13th, but for filmmaking in general. So I just want to say thank you for coming and doing this interview. Thank you for working on the Never Hike Alone projects and being a part of it. And I hope to include you in as many projects as I have and as many ways as I can. So it has been a pleasure to have you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Vin. Thanks a lot. And everybody, he's the man. And he's got a good name.
Yeah, right. I like that.
How are you going to get two Vinnies ever?
Well,
okay.
we had three Vinnies in this house. My stepfather and my older brother were there were three Vinnies in the house one of the time. It was insane. It was Vinnie X, Y, and Z, but it was Big Vinnie, and I ended up being Little Vinnie. But I'm the tallest one, so that's how it usually works out, right? It's the opposite.
You know what? I was Little Vinnie in my house too, and then there was a Baby Vinnie.
Oh, a Baby Vinnie! Wow.
My nephew. Yeah.
Okay. So with that said, that's from both Little Vinnies. Thank you everybody for joining us tonight. Remember, Never Hike Alone 2 is still crowdfunding. We're in demand. We'll be crowdfunding into next year. You can donate now, July 5th. Check back in with us. We'll do our big announcement on our secret project that we cannot wait to tell everyone about. We're almost done with the promotion materials. We got some artwork being made that's going to show everybody what we're making. And I'm really, really excited about that. It's going to help us raise more money for Never Hike Alone. Remember, we're trying to get to $250,000, which will allow us to add a kill montage to Never Hike Alone 2. And then $300,000 will allow us to make another edition, sort of like Never Hike in the Snow, another episode called The Ghost of Crystal Lake, which will feature the ghost of, it will feature the ghost Jason, but will feature the origin of Ghost Jason, about how Jason went from Jason Takes Manhattan, flushed out into the Jersey River Jason to Ghost Jason as we know him in the Never Hike Alone franchise. So that's what we're building towards, obviously, and we have 10 months to do it. So like Vinny said, every dollar counts. Get your friends involved, get your family involved. Use this passion, your passion for Friday the 13th, all the things that you've ever done to support the franchise, and help us get more Friday the 13th fans from around the world to join this cause and bring about this final installment to the Never Hike Alone franchise.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody. So I'll be back next week. Oh yeah, Vin, sorry about that. I'll be back next week. I'll be announcing a special guest probably early next week of who will be joining me. But Vin, again, it was a pleasure having you. And we'll obviously be in touch very soon about what we have, the job that we have ahead of us.
Okay. Thanks.
Bye, everybody.
Good night. It was a pleasure to be here.